for a month's time, and we're not really sure what you can do with a month. So if they come in for a month and you train a skill to a particular frequency, will they retain that information, or will it not be there 6 weeks later and then you lose everything that you trained? So Kavina and colleagues were one of the first researchers to start asking these questions about retention. They sought to determine the difference between high frequency aim retention and low frequency aim retention. 3 participants with learning disabilities participated in the study. The researchers looked at retention of a high fluency aim and a low fluency aim, and they used repeated readings. The aims were based on Hasbrook and Tyndall 1992, which suggested that participants should read at, participants in this study should read passages at 162 words per minute. So Kavina and colleagues found that there was a retention decay, but the retention decay was similar amongst the high performance and the low performance standard. So all participants retained, but it was the same, so it was the same change. The ending frequency of the last day of intervention, and then this is the 3.5 months later. This shows it a little bit better. So we see the same amount of decay and retention across each participant. And this participant had a larger decay.
I like the way they presented data.
So, however, there's some limitations with the Kavina study that may prohibit assumptions about the effect different frequency aims have on retention. Researchers didn't control for the beginning frequency. As you can see, each participant started with a different frequency aim. So Mark started at reading at 45 words per minute, and Anna started reading at 86 words per minute. So the participants already had the skill in their repertoire. Kavina's research gave me the opportunity to clarify whether performance at predicted frequency aim produces greater retention outcomes on retention probes, or if retention can be identified at lower frequency aims. So research needed to help us understand at what point in fluency process retention can be seen and how optimal the retention is. This study examined the retention of reading sight words with typically developing pre-K students once the skill had been strengthened to 3 frequency aims using fluency training in the PT method. So the 3 frequency aims are a percentage of the fluency aim for reading sight words, which is 60 correct words per minute. And so it took 25% of the fluency aim, which is 15 correct words per minute, 50% fluency aim, which is 30 correct words per minute, and 100% fluency aim, which is the 60 correct words per minute. So the study also addressed the difference in retention, accuracy, and fluency after 2 weeks and 6 weeks amongst the sets. So the study took place at the Preschool for Creative Learning on university campus. It is a university preschool with mostly children of parents that are enrolled in the university, or they are staff of the university or teachers. However, there are a few parents from the general community. The individual session was conducted in a room with a table and 2 chairs seated across from each other with minimal distractions. So except for one participant, her retention data points were conducted in the home setting because she left the school. But it was in the same type of setting. It was in a room with minimal distractions in her home with a table and chairs.
So I have a question. So you are targeting preschool. I wonder the rationale for testing for intervention
with the preschoolers instead of, okay, so I used preschoolers because they didn't have previous knowledge of reading sight words. So I wanted them to start at a baseline of 0. And I knew that choosing preschool students was going to give me the best opportunity to have a baseline knowledge of zero. I didn't want them to know. But
So is um, in the introduction, we didn't have any paragraph discussing the importance of maybe intervening preschoolers and why it's important to intervene the preschoolers. Something like that.
Right, yeah, so I think what she really wants to know is, are Dolch words important for preschoolers to know? Is that a skill that they want to learn, or is this just something that you decided to do?
right. Well, I think it is a skill that preschoolers can learn, but I don't think that the words that we use are first grade Dolch sight words. So it's not necessary for them to have that skill, but it is beneficial. So at this point in their lives, they don't necessarily need to be able to read first grade Dolch sight words, but it's not going to help. It's not going to hurt them moving into kindergarten knowing these words, if that makes
Well, and Bethany, like, what are the examples of those words? So, here's your list: put, by, any, of, and. So a lot of these things pop up in, the books that they encounter anyways. My 4-year-old doesn't need to read, but she does, and so I think that just the pre-exposure of this stuff, kind of benefits the learner at this point. I think that could only help them, not probably necessary, but like great thing when they get into that grade. They already know those words, or some of these words are very pop up, like were, that stuff pops up in stories all over the place. So I think that's beneficial to what they're getting exposed to, even though they're not the ones reading, they're being read to with those words. So
Yeah, Dolch words, we always taught kids in preschool that those need to read. And so you were using the first grade words so that they wouldn't already know them and not be taught them while you were working on it. But they're words that they should be able to read at some point anyway, so that they're in that way. And I think what you're asking for is a paragraph that kind of explains that. Is that correct?
But there are pros and cons regarding whether preschool should express to the written or not. I think it's nice and
it was beneficial for them in the long run, but it wasn't necessary. They were going to be ahead of the curve rather than with the curve in as far as typical age group. And for the participants, so there was teachers of the pre-K classroom were asked to participate in the study by nominating eligible students for the study and participating in the social validity questionnaire at the end of the study. One teacher actually nominated 4 pre-K students from her classroom, so I only had 1 teacher participants and 4 pre-K student participants. One participant is actually used as a control participant, so I had 3 experimental participants and 1 control participant, which we'll get into in just a minute. These students were assessed before they were eligible to continue in the study. So we did get a consent form from their parents in order to assess them, and then we started the assessment.
Bethany,
Yes.
in your document, you talk about 2 pre-K classrooms teachers.
Yes.
But you just said you just had 1?
Yes. So the school had 2 pre-K classrooms, and
Oh, okay.
but it turned out that only one teacher had eligible students.
I see. Only one teacher identified students. Got it.
Right.
Great. Cool. Thanks.
Do you have any, what was her typical instruction activities look like? Was she ever trying to teach in your written?
No.
We went over and over that because I was appalled at what the preschool actually did, so.
Ugh.
Had a wonderful circle time, where they sang a few songs. And then they did centers where they built with blocks and they drew a few pictures. But that was about all that they did as far as teaching, it seems. So these students were not taught any words in typical settings. I guess you would think that you would get that in that preschool, right?
There's a lot of preschools that are moving towards a more play-based learning approach. So you will not see flashcards or worksheets or a lot of academics and stuff like that in preschools.
It would be helpful to provide a little bit of information like that in your teacher participant section.
She did provide that.
Yes.
She said they used project learning and they did not
Projects.
teach words.
Yeah, so that's a lot of like play-based learning.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I also had a question about the student participants. I was wondering whether they were interested in reading, have a good attention span, also if they recognize any written words.
Okay.
There are lots of copies with some written words,
Right.
I'm sure. And then, so if they were able to follow directions, which shows their kind of a language development level. But I think those information would be beneficial.
So those are things that I addressed in the assessment.
Participant. Yeah,
In
you
order
talked
to-
about their
Right.
some basic level of their reading level, but in general, any child variables like whether the child liked reading books and stories, and whether the child had a good attention span, were able to sit and read, participate, for example, and were able to follow directions. And those are, to me,
Right. I didn't ask the teachers about those particular behaviors, but I did make sure that the students could sit down for and attend to the assessment. And that was kind of the way that I figured out whether they would be eligible for the study based on being able to sit there and run the assessment. So,
And embedded in the assessment, you had a lot of directions that you were asking to do. You were constantly giving them demands. And had you seen any work refusal or anything like that, indicating that they couldn't follow directions and they likely would not be included in your study.
right.
So do you want to say that specifically? During the assessment, students proved that they could follow directions and attend to it.
I think articles reporting participants, they always provide their basic cognitive level, language level. I mean, you don't have to, but their behavioral characteristics on their participant section. In your case, you just provide their age level, although you do have some participant selection criteria, but we don't know how well they were able to participate. Even one of the criteria was, for example, the ability to recognize English letter names, and also there was a certain criteria to find something. So how much were they able to recognize words? Everybody recognize all alphabets, for example?
But that data is in her paper.
So I will do this under participant session.
Well, they're under the participant selection session. You want it in, I don't understand where you want it. You want it as part of the participant description? So maybe if the table, because remember, you did put a table in the introduction because there was not that much to say about them, but maybe putting that assessment data would be helpful as well. So how many the ABCs did they learn and whether or not they could sit and follow direction. So if you put that in a table, then that would be.
Or the
Right,
rather than where it is.
Well, yeah, let's look at where the table would go, but yeah, it might be helpful to put it in a table so that it stands out.
Okay. So we already talked a little bit about the assessment. So once chosen to participate in the study, based on the teacher nomination, I conducted an assessment to further determine if the participant was eligible for the study. So the assessment consisted of, they had to do these three things. They had to be able to attend to an activity for 5 minutes, which was determined by them actually engaging in the assessment and following the directions and attending to the activity. That should say 80% accuracy, recognizing English letters, typo number 1, and 0% accuracy, recognizing first grade Dutch sight words. So this is the worksheet that was placed in front of the participants for recognizing the English letters. And they're all lowercase, so it's placed in front of the participants, and they were asked to tell me the letters as fast as they could. And I started the timer was set, and they had as long as they wanted to, so it was a duration timing. And they just went through and told me the letters, and they had to get 80% accurate in this. And then this is the sight word worksheet, which has followed the same procedure as the letter worksheet. It was placed in front of the participant, and they were told to say the words that they knew as fast as they could. And then the timer was set for a duration timing. They had to get 0% on this. I did not want them to know any of the words. And if they didn't recognize a word, they just said, I don't know. And I informed them that if they didn't know a word, that they could just say, I don't know. For my materials, I used 3-ring binders, sheet protectors, digital timer, flashcards with the sight words written on them for 4 different color flashcards with sight words written on them, a video audio recorder, and the standard acceleration chart, the timings, and the dailies. The dependent variable in the study was rate of correct and incorrect responding to sight words or frequency. Responses were correct if they included the correct pronunciation of the word. Incorrect responses were unknown words, skipped words, incorrect pronunciation, or the lack of response within 3 seconds. And all data are displayed on the standard acceleration chart for a better analysis of the overall acceleration of learning. And they were recorded using the video and audio recorder. No, I did have a Hebrew speaking student. Yeah, he did speak Hebrew in his home, but his English was great. So. All right, this study used an adapted alternating treatments design in order to allow for comparison across all 3 frequencies. All participants were exposed to the baseline teaching and retention phases. 4 sets of sight words were alternated within each session. 3 sets of sight words were taught to a particular frequency aim. And the 3 frequencies, again, were the 15 correct words per minute, 30 correct words per minute, and 60 correct words per minute. And they were all counterbalanced across participant. And you can see that participant 3 and participant 4, they have the same because they were yoked. And the flashcards were a different color for each set. So set A was blue, set B was orange, set C was green, and then set D was yellow. Should have had a control. Anyway, baseline. So for this one, we had 1 CSA timing per set per day. So the participant would sit across from the instructor, and they would be asked to say the words on the words on the cards as fast as they could in the 15 seconds. So the timer was started once the participant admitted the first word, and general praise was given for participation only, and it occurred on consecutive days until stability was reached. And if the participant was told not that if they didn't know the word that they could say, I don't know. For the teaching, there was 1 session a day for all 3 sight word sets, 4 timings for each frequency. There was a CSA timing, which set for the expressive, and it was 15 seconds. So the participants saw the word, and they were given the opportunity to say the word as fast as they could for 15 seconds. Then the hear CSA timing, which was the echoic timing for 30 seconds, where the participant heard the researcher say the word, and then saw the word on the flashcard, and then they were then asked to repeat the word. So if the word was my, they saw the word my, they heard me say my, and then they repeated my. That happened twice, and then we had 2 of those timings, and then the last timing was a CSA expressive 15-second timing, similar to the first timing. And reinforcement for the last CSA timing was given for correct responding and incorrect increasing frequencies based on a percentile schedule, where the participants had to perform 30% better than their last 10 frequencies.
So the correct feedback was given.
Yes, so for the last 3, the reinforcement was given for the last 3. The first one was the probe. So at the beginning of that, those are the data that I charted that we'll see later on. These were just the teaching data to see how much they learned. So reinforcement was given for the last 3 based on incorrect frequencies, or correct frequencies, sorry. And then the first one, participation only. So there wasn't, it was just general praise.
I wonder if it was mentioned clearly here. Did you mention that in your manuscript?
It is. It should be, unless you didn't think so. Did you?
What was the question? I couldn't hear. I can't hear Dr. Blair. I'm sorry.
The instructional session.
At the end of the timing?
Yeah, or
Yes.
each time they made a correct responding.
No, at the end of the
at the
timing.
end.
Yes. Except for the very last one, it was interspersed in the timing as well, but it was all marked down whether it was or not.
Also, before I forget, baseline data collection was also done in session per day. So
Yes.
baseline was collected over 3 consecutive days.
Yes, 3 days.
Yeah, I would clarify that. I was trying to see if she mentioned that, but I didn't find that information baseline
Okay.
session.
So 1 session a day for 3 consecutive days.
Yeah.
Let me stop for just a second. Carrie, do you think your recording is picking up Kwansoon's questions?
No, because I can't hear her. I can hear like maybe 2 words out of each question that she has. I can hear you, but that's about it. And
Yes, I'm loud.
it's okay, me too. I never need a microphone.
So I'll go ahead and repeat them so that it's on the recording. So Bethany has.
Awesome. Perfect.
All right, wonderful. So for the retention phase, we had one CSAT timing similar to the baseline timing, 2 weeks and 6 weeks after reaching mastery. So after they ended the teaching phase, we waited 2 weeks and then we waited 6 weeks and did a one CSAT timing where the participants saw the word and they were given the opportunity to say the words on the flashcards. General praise was given for participation. For the control participant, the randomly chosen control participant was yoked with a randomly chosen experimental participant. So the control participant was exposed to the same number of words as the experimental participant in baseline and teaching phase. So for example, Frank, the experimental participant, responded correctly or incorrectly to 8 sight words in a set. Then Charles, the control participant, was also given the opportunity to respond to 8 sight words within that same set. So Charles had as much time as he needed to respond to those 8 cards, and general praise was given for participation in the baseline phase. For the teaching phase, he had 4 timings, just like the experimental participant. So again, 8 cards, he was given 8 cards, and then except he had as much time as needed. His reinforcement was exactly the same as Frank, regardless of his responses. So even if he didn't respond to any and Frank responded to 4 correct, he still was given the same reinforcement. For the retention phase, he was given the opportunity to respond to as many words as possible, just like the other experimental participants, within a 15-second timing. And general praise was given for participation. IOA was collected across all 3 phases via video recording. Bless Kate's little heart. Percentage of agreement for incorrect and correct responses. So 9 out of 10, the 90% agreement. Had 100% agreement across all phases. And it was collected in 33.3% in baseline, 39.2% in teaching phase, and 40% in retention phase. For procedural integrity, it was collected in each phase again via video recording using a checklist. It was I had 100% agreement across all phases, again in 33.3% in baseline, 39.2% in teaching, and 40% in retention phase.
How would you provide some examples of the checklist items, although you have provided in the appendix in the narrative? Give a few examples of what kind of
Okay. So,
all right. So Kwansoon asked for some examples in the narrative, even though there's the table in the checklist of the items that were identified for procedural integrity.
for social validity, it was collected at the conclusion of the study with a rating scale that was given to the teachers.
Oh, you're welcome.
On a 6-point Likert scale. So after the retention data had been collected, the social validity questionnaire was given to the teachers and the teacher.
And I don't think that data is in the materials you got because she collected it the same day, but she has it now. So
Okay. So I would provide the Albright.
Right. I just told her that this morning. I caught it. Yeah. Yesterday. Yeah.
Okay. All right, for the results, they're all displayed on the standard acceleration chart. So before we move on, I'm going to orient you to the chart. So we have successive calendar days on the x-axis and count per minute on the y-axis. Chart is arranged in a semi-log fashion to show proportional behavior change. The slope or trend line is depicted by a line referring to as acceleration line, and the term acceleration is used to refer how fast the participant learn the material. A divide acceleration or deceleration refers to a jump down in frequency for that behavior. During baseline, correct responding for all 3 participants remained stable at 0 correct words per minute with high frequencies and errors. All participants showed an increasing trend in errors during baseline, with errors ranging from 16 to 48 correct or incorrect words per minute. Charles, the control participant, remained stable at 0 correct words per minute. and correctly responded, sorry, to one word in the baseline phase for one set, but his later baseline data points, he did not correctly respond to that word. So he remained at 0% accuracy at the end of baseline. So incorrect responding ranged from 10 to 76 words per minute for Charles. And all participants remained at baseline levels for the control set of sight words, which was not taught. Right, for the teaching phase for Scarlett, this table shows the frequency target, the 25% fluency aim, 50% fluency aim, and 100% fluency aim. She took less number of trials to reach criteria for the 25%, more time for the 100%. She had great accelerations, and her ending accuracy was 62% for the 25% fluency aim, 100% for the 50%, and 100% for the 60 correct words per minute.
So you might want to remind Kwansoon of what the ending frequencies were for, I mean, it says what her ending frequencies were, but what was 25%?
So 25% was 15 correct words per minute, 50% was 30 correct words per minute, and 100% is 60 correct words per minute. Mm-hmm. So she was above for the 25 and 50%, and then she was right at for the 100%.
How did Scarlett get so high above for the 50% one?
Well, that happened. One day she came in and she was like,
because we required 2 days, so like the second day she jumped up from that aim. Is that kind of what it was? Okay. Cool.
She was on fire that day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
so because we required the 2 consecutive days, it allowed her to increase in frequency. Got it. Yep. Okay.
And for Rhett, again, it took him longer to reach the 100% fluency aim compared to the 25% fluency aim. He ended with great accelerations again, and then 57% accuracy for the 25% fluency aim, 100% accuracy for the 50% fluency aim, and then 100% accuracy for the 60 correct words per minute. And he was above fluency for just above for the 25%, where it's 15 correct words per minute, and just above for the 50% with 40 correct words per minute, and right at for the 100%. For Frank, it actually took him one trial longer to reach the 25% fluency aim compared to the 50% fluency aim, and his accelerations are a lot smaller but still good accelerations compared to the other participants. He reached 20 correct words per minute at 56% accuracy for the 15 correct words per minute fluency aim, and he reached 32% correct, or 32 words per minute at 80% fluency accuracy. Woo, there's a lot of percentages in there. 80% accuracy for the 50% fluency aim, 60 correct words per minute, which was right at the aim with 100% accuracy for the 100% fluency. And for Charles, which was yoked with the previous participant, Frank. He had the same number of trials as Frank, and he did not reach criteria for 25% or 100% fluency aim, but he did reach mastery for the 50% fluency aim at 37 correct words per minute. So he was right under for this one, which was 15 correct words per minute, and he was right under for this one, which was 60 correct words per minute. So he's a little bit under that one. In ending accuracy, I have, yes. So for the 25%, I just realized it's not on this chart. 25% fluency, he had 33% accuracy. For the 50%, he had 88 or 80% accuracy, and then he had 80% accuracy for the 100% too. All right, now the good stuff. So for the retention, this table shows each participant their ending frequency in words per minute, their 2 weeks retention, 6-week retention, and then the acceleration value of the ending frequency to the 6-week retention. So for the 25% fluency retention, you can see that Rhett remained consistent at 16 correct words per minute, 2 weeks and 6 weeks later. Scarlett actually increased to 24 correct words per minute at the 2-week retention, but dropped tremendously at the 6-week retention. And for Frank, he was above frequency aim, which is 15 correct words per minute and ending, and then he remained at the 15 correct words per minute for the 2-week retention, but then he dropped again.
Interesting. Like Scarlett, she was really doing a 2-week retention, but then all of a sudden in 6 weeks lost most of it.
Yeah.
Child Rat consistently. But Frank. But then Charles.
And then you have Charles.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going on with him. So he didn't even reach frequency or fluency, reach the aim, but then he was at the aim for the 6-week retention. So and then here are the wonderful charts. So you can see the yellow line depicts the fluency aim. The dots are the corrects and the X's are errors. So you can see that her errors remain stable. This is for Scarlett for the 25% fluency. Her errors remained consistent, as did her correct responding. And then after 6 weeks, her correct responding dropped back close to baseline levels, and then her errors increased.
So what's an alternating treatment design? Then can you tell me a little more how you alternated?
Yes. So I alternated the frequencies within each session.
Mm-hmm.
So when the participant came in for a session, I would randomly select a flashcard set, and then I would do it that way. And it was different each day.
You could better chart the alternating kind of alternating treatment design.
Talk about that, because we did try that, so
Uh-huh.
go ahead and
Yeah.
talk about it.
So we did try to chart it all together. The problem is they're all so closely together. They're all so close that it's really difficult to see which one, where the lines are.
And where one stops and
Yeah.
what are the retention data points. So it just was too clustered when you charted all 3 of them, even across one fluency.
Did you guys, oh, sorry. I don't know if someone's talking or not.
I'm talking. So keep those graph, but wonder if you can create an additional graph, typical line graph we use in our ABA field. Would that be possible?
It's possible, but the ABA line, but the line graph, the typical line graph doesn't really show the reason you use the acceleration chart is because, for example, the difference between 10 and 20 is much greater than the difference between if you know 40 and 50 words. So it's set up to actually show that, if you learn 10 more words and you only know 10, then you've learned a lot more, versus if you already know 40 words and you learn 10 more, you don't learn very much. And that's why precision teaching uses that graph. If you turn it to, you don't really get the nuance at all, and I'm not really sure what it would look like anymore, but you don't really get the nuance at all if you use just a regular line graph.
Did you guys try doing acceleration collections instead of having the marks, instead of having the actual frequencies and then the acceleration line across it, just having maybe like for each, within the fluency thing, your 25, 50, and 100 have like each acceleration line be a different color, and then just this collect the accelerations, the acceleration collection. Did you guys try that? 'Cause sometimes that reduces the noise. Because yeah, if you put all of this with all of these behaviors on one chart, there's no way you can differentiate between the data streams. But reducing some of that noise, enhancing the parsimony, would be just doing the acceleration collections.
That might be a good idea.
Did you guys try that when you were dabbling?
I did not do that for this. I remember we did that for the proposal. We kind of put those together. So I can go back and look at that and try to piece that.
Sure.
All right. So for
Wait, I'm not sure that answered Kwansoon's question. Do you want us to? I just think that the line graph is not really going to be indicative of what happened, but how do you feel about that, Kwansoon?
We don't show the error rate, only show the correct rate, accuracy only, at least. Then the graph would not that busy. So
we did try to graph it on Excel, right? With the, I know I tried and it looked crazy. And I remember you showed me the one that you created too.
And it was just,
just the
even with just the
With just
corrects, there are just too many data points. When you put the 50 and the 100% across there as well, then they all start looking like it's the same data. It's really hard to tell what's not.
because you have so many out, so only showed even the teaching phase only, not retention. Baseline teaching. That would, then maybe you would have more room to depict the data, maybe. Just my thought.
Okay. Okay. And you're still talking about putting all three on there? All right. Why don't we send them what we did? I don't think that there's any way to do it, but if you guys have a better idea, then I think doing the accelerations collections will be one way to help see that. Maybe that'll work, but Bethany will send you the other graph. And even if you cut down on a bunch of stuff, you just cannot see.
Yeah. I mean, just suggestion. I don't know what it would look like. Or would it be a better way to show the readers that, yeah, we really use an alternative treatment design. Data look like this.
I can send you what I have.
That's included.
No, yeah, trying to put the error on it was impossible. But if you only showed the teaching, I'm not sure that would help. But why don't we?
Maybe the baseline just the teaching. We all know they are
right. Right. So yeah, because the alternating happened during the sessions as far as just during teaching. So yeah, let's see.
I can test it out and send it to you.
Send it to all of us.
Okay. Right. For Rhett, for the 25% fluency, he retained his correct and incorrect responding 2 weeks and 6 weeks later. For Frank, for the 25% fluency, he retained his correct responding and his incorrect responding 2 weeks later. He dropped in correct responding and maintained his incorrect responding 6 weeks later. For Charles, the yoked participant, he was all over the board. and he did not maintain correct responding. He didn't even meet fluency criteria. So, but then he again popped up and showed some correct responding in 6-week retention. So for the 50% fluency retention data, again, the participants, the ending frequency, 2 weeks retention, 6 weeks retention, and then the acceleration value of the ending frequency to the 6-week retention. Scarlett, for the 50% fluency retention, which is the 30 correct words per minute, she was just below the 30 correct words per minute for the 2-week and the 6-week retention. Rhett was above the 30 correct words per minute for the 2-week retention and just below for the 6-week retention. And Frank was below and then just below for the 2-week and the 6-week retention. And Charles actually met criteria at 37 correct words per minute, but he did not retain the information or retain his correct responding with 20 correct words per minute and then 4 correct words per minute. He had a divide 1.42 acceleration.
So talk a little bit about those values, because you talk a little bit, not about the divides, but you talk about the times values, which are kind of the same.
So a divide 1.08, 1.06, and a 1.03, those are basically showing no change in the data. It's flat. But then a divide 1.42, as we can see later on, it's a little bit of a deceleration, obviously from 37 to 4. So for Scarlett, for the 50% fluency, she did maintain her correct and incorrect responding 2 weeks and 6 weeks later. For Rhett, for the 50% fluency, he did maintain his correct and incorrect responding. He actually had higher accuracy for the 2-week retention than he did the 6-week retention, so we see another pop-up in errors there. For Frank, for the 50% fluency, he was just below the mastery criterion for the 2-week retention, but we see it pop back up for the 6-week retention. So he kept his incorrect responding frequencies as well. They were consistent with the baseline or the teaching phase. And for Charles, we see a definite divide acceleration in his correct responding, and then a stable acceleration for his incorrect responding. For the 100% fluency retention, I didn't put it in there. So
No, you
I
definitely
actually, I did. I'm going to make you wait for it.
Oh, I already flipped through the slides to email them to you. That was the first thing that I did.
So for the ending frequency, this is 60 correct words per minute. Charles did not make it at 48 correct words per minute. Scarlett showed Scarlett, Rhett, Frank, and no, not Charles. So just Frank, Rhett, and Scarlett showed retention 2 weeks later, but then Scarlett and Frank did not show retention 6 weeks later. The divide acceleration. So for Scarlett, for the 100% fluency, she showed retention and accuracy 2 weeks. Then at 6 weeks, we see a jump up in incorrect responding and a drop down in correct responding. For Rhett, so this is the new data point, we see that he is just below the fluency criteria for 6-week retention, and his errors for 2 week and 6 weeks remained close to teaching levels.
So I wonder, so some students had so many opportunities compared to others.
Yes.
Whether that might have affected the outcome.
That was the point of
Yeah.
the yoga participant.
So for Frank, he showed maintained his correct responding and his incorrect responding 2 weeks later. We see a jump up in errors compared to the last two data points, but it's pretty consistent with what he was getting during the teaching phase. And we see a drop down in correct responding. For Charles, the yoked participant, again, all over the board, but he actually maintained his teaching data with just below the fluency aim.
Who is he yoked with again?
Charles.
Let's yoked with Frank.
Frank. Okay, cool. Thanks.
So wonder, so since there are so many calendar days, I can see that depicting them in a line graph would be difficult. So wonder show the first few phases and then later phases. So have two separate graphs.
So maybe doing teaching, as you suggested earlier, as a separate graph, and the retention
No.
only for teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're still asking though for a line graph. Because it doesn't represent precision teaching.
Mhm.
What do you say about that, Carrie? Wait.
Hi. I didn't. I'm
He
sorry.
wants to do Bethany to do a line graph.
Okay.
You're suggesting.
Oh, yeah, she's suggesting. She's suggesting that Bethany do a line graph of the teaching phase, a regular line graph rather than acceleration.
You know, you can.
Okay, in addition.
Yeah, right. And you can actually set the axes in Excel to semi-logarithmic. So that way you can maintain this scale and then play with it that way. I don't know. I heard something about like a graph that shows the first part of teaching and then the graph that shows the end part of teaching. That to me would be confusing. I don't know. But I say that like if you try to do it on the Excel, I would maintain the axis. There's just a little click of the button when you go with the axes.
No, we tried doing that. Because
you guys tried, yeah.
To manipulate the standard acceleration chart the way they were. So we did try it in Excel, and it doesn't really. I don't think it helps, and I don't think it'll respond to quantum.
Well, and here's my thing: as I was thinking about this, is that like a lot of times in alternating treatments designs, we're looking for the differentiation of the data streams to say like, look, this one produces the highest percentage or this one produces the highest frequency, and that's what we're going for. So therefore this treatment that's at the top of the graph is the winner, right? But that's not what we're looking at here. Our winner is determined based on the retention scores, not really on the training data. So I wonder if there's any utility really in looking at the data that way.
So the retention, the important research questions. I agree with you. Okay.
She said, I don't know if you heard her, that she agreed with the statement that you just made.
Okay.
Mention is the important.
Yeah, because like in functional analyses, right, the standard way graphing is in alternating treatments. And so you're like, oh yeah, obviously attention is the function because that's the one that's producing the highest rate. But I don't think that that's how we're analyzing these data.
You showed a research article before. They showed all three panels graph on one page.
Right.
They showed only the important portion, right? So you don't show the bottom part of your chart in top part of your chart. Maybe you can only show this portion and then put them all the graph on the same page so that you can visually see differentiation between those three.
By all three graphs,
Yeah.
25, 50, and 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's utility in looking at the data aggregately like that. And that's where my recommendation, I think maybe acceleration collections, maybe where to go.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Which one?
Your introduction section.
So you could show what's his
You
name?
show it
Convenient.
So have 1, 2. So rather than do participants, like he has 4 participants, just do the 3, the 25,
Yeah.
50, and 100.
Yes. Then you can actually remove this part. If I were, I mean, it's great. You could put everything on one graph, but you could cut this part out, and show the middle important rates to show all of them. I mean, to have all the graphs on one page. That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Without the teaching or with the teaching?
No, you
No,
don't have to
just the
show-
ending frequency.
Just the retention.
Yeah.
And the frequency, you don't have to show this part, like above, like
Right.
1,000. In your case, all the frequencies fall around.
Yeah, they're below 60. Yeah.
You have to show above 100 frequency.
Yeah.
So you could do frequency stacks. So Bethany, so you know, like the way that we chart at the center, we stack our frequencies. So you can do frequency stacks of the retention scores.
Okay. I'm just trying to picture it.
No, I
Sure.
can see it. I just,
But I don't think that shows you an alternating frequency line, though.
Actually, you can
do some of that.
can do screenshot on map has high resolution, so you can cut this much graph for each the rate, right, percentage of and then you stick them up on
On
Word
top of each
document
other.
on
Right.
top of each other, and then maybe you can even if you want to show this piece, the top piece, you can also cut this out and then put on top of the first 20% fluency.
Well, that's from my perspective, that's going to take some technical know-how, kind of working with graphs and stuff. And so let's work on it and see if
Okay.
we can figure out a way to do it. Yeah, we had tried. I think it's a good idea. We had tried kind of a couple of different things and ran into difficulty trying to cut and paste.
Send me them, then maybe I will create them for you.
Okay, I'll work with it and see what I can figure out. I think I have a better understanding of what we want it to look like, so I can try to figure out how to maneuver that. All right. So the purpose of the study was to examine the differential effects of retention on reading sight words once the skill had been strengthened to 3 frequency aims using precision teaching and fluency training. So this research extended the current research by using frequencies below the predicted frequency aim. Results show that all participants maintain 2 weeks after retention. They maintain their correct responding and their incorrect responding. This is consistent with Kubina and colleagues 2008. They found that after building a skill to just below and just above a frequency aim, those participants maintained their correct responding 2 weeks later. So results show that even at low frequency, participants can still retain information 2 weeks after training.
Actually, you have enough space. If you look at it, you have 2 graphs here. So
The part outside of it is really big. That was the other thing we did try to do, was pull them all under one page, but the part the picture part, because those are pictures, not Excel graphs. The picture part is too big.
Because you screenshot too wide.
Yeah, here, Constance, look at what Carrie's showing you.
What about this?
Yeah.
So like we'll manipulate the y-axis, but then we can, I think what would be helpful is indicate at what frequency level the 25-15% would be, and then you stack those retention checks, and they all have the different symbols like coordinating to those different percentages, and then you go look at the terminal frequency, the 2-week frequency, and then the 6-week frequency.
Yeah, I thought about it like weekly, showing weekly data, but yeah, looks good.
So that way we're looking more at like the ending stuff, not the training frequencies, right?
Yeah.
Not the training data, but the
Yeah.
And
cool.
you can do that on
Yeah, then I think we can easily make this. It'll be a lot of just like, artistic work, but we could do it for sure. I'll help you with this, Bethany, if you want.
All right, and are we then saying not to use the
No.
what did you say?
I was just like, no. Like these charts.
Okay,
These charts stay in.
okay, all right.
Yeah, these are just
But I think that this is showing more of an aggregate, like quick comparison of all of them. I think like I definitely see utility in that. Like you need a summary chart,
Yes.
So I think that that's definitely helpful. And then we can also look at some. I also, and I'll do this on my own, but play with some acceleration collections of the teaching data. Because I think that would be neat to look at that collectively too. So anyways, go ahead.
Definitely agree with you guys, and I just could not. We had real difficulty trying to finally figure it out.
Sure. Yeah.
I tried to do some of that with the tables, so.
Yeah, I liked your tables. Your tables were really good. Usually I'm not a big table fan, but I liked your all's tables.
That way, you have so many figures. You can even move this to the right and the side, then you can stack all 3 of them together.
Yeah, and then we can show all 3 participants all on one page. Definitely. So they'll have this as one participant, and then we can do it again.
right,
So that way we have one page of all of the retention data.
right.
Suggestion, I like that.
Cool.
Awesome. All right. So for 6-week retention data, it was variable across participant and fluency aim. For 6-week retention for the 25% fluency, only one participant maintained their correct responding and their errors. For 6-week retention data for 50% fluency, all participants actually maintained their correct responding, which is inconsistent with Behrens et al., who found that building a skill to frequencies below the high frequency aim did not produced a decay in retention rather than retention. So for 6-week 100% fluency, we saw actually a decay in retention for 6 weeks for 2 participants, which is, again, inconsistent with Behrens et al., who found that performing at higher frequencies before the retention period produced greater retention. But it was consistent, similar to Kubina's study, in the sense that his participants all had started the study at different frequencies. So the participant in his study that started at the lowest frequency, actually had the largest decay in retention. And it was a decay similar to what we saw in this study. For the control participant, based on the limitation of Kubina's study, the study controlled 4 practice opportunities with the yoked control participant. Charles had the same number of trials, same amount of exposure to the words, and the same reinforcement. as frank across all frequencies. But he only met mastery for the criterion for 50% of fluency aim, and he added decay and retention for each of the frequencies, except for the 25% frequency where he popped back up to the 15 correct words per minute. For the control set of sight words that I mentioned in the beginning, all participants remained at baseline levels throughout the study. These words were used to control for carryover effects, and data show that participants did not learn the words in the sets based on the exposure to the other words. So in addition to the control set of sight words, we also did not, we eliminated them learning the words as outside of the study as a confounding variable based on giving limited information about the sight word sets to the teachers and the parents. So they knew that we were learning sight words, but they didn't know what set we were actually learning. And this set of sight words showed that they were not learning these words in this set outside. So for limitations, this was obviously a single subject design study with a limited number of participants and only one skill. So with that being said, the data are not generalizable to other individuals or skill sets. More data needs to be collected. Another limitation is that there are only 4 words in each sight word set, so this could have affected the accuracy. It was easy to see that the participants were learning one word and they could respond to that one word as quickly as possible and say, I don't know, to the other words and meet the correct responding frequency and move on. And to piggyback off of that, accuracy wasn't included in the mastery criteria, so they were able to move on after learning one word as opposed to multiple words. So not including accuracy into the mastery criterion was also a limitation. And
so I'm just going to interrupt you real quick because I think a lot of these are not limitations to your study. I don't think that they devalue your study. I think that they are definitely areas for future studies to examine the impact of these. But I think single subject research is not a limitation. I think that small number of sessions at the frequency aim, that's what the Barons did. That's the mastery criterion you use. So there's precedent for that. So I don't think that's a limitation. I think future research should look at maybe spend a longer time at aims. So I think a lot of these are not, I view as, and maybe my definition is off, but I view, when you say limitation, you're saying this is what makes my study not good. Right? So it's oh, I accidentally gave too much reinforcement to this participant and this participant, or we totally forgot to control for this variable. So it's kind of leaving the school maybe as a limitation, and the 4 words in each sight word set maybe, but I think that definitely not including accuracy is not a limitation. I think that's just an opportunity for future research. Same deal with it being single subject design. You got to start somewhere. And the small number of sessions at frequency aim, I think that there's precedent for that in the literature. So I don't think that that's I think, again, given your data, it makes us want to examine that in the future research. But I don't think that that is a limitation. Does anyone else agree with me, or am I just off on that?
Not generalization, maybe.
I mean, these are just things that because at the onset of your study, I view limitations as areas in which you didn't control for. So procedurally, these are things that popped up that we couldn't control for that reduce the validity and reliability of your data. And so Frank and Charles engaging in off-task behaviors, that could be a limitation of their data. But I don't think that some of half of these things, I think more of those things are more considerations for future research that we need to investigate because of your data, but not oops, our data aren't really trustworthy because of these issues.
Do you have any suggestions for practices? For example, the retention rate was a little low. So in terms of practices, if anybody wanted to teach young children this kind of sight words, what additional approach should be used to improve the retention rate? You thought about that?
Um, Based on these data, I would say that the small number of sessions at the frequency aim was the issue.
Or
Based,
accuracy.
so I think that those two things are extremely important as far as producing optimal retention. That you need
But
to.
look at your data though. So go back to, because I'm sitting here trying my hardest to find trends. And I'm really having a hard time to find trends in these data. They're all over the place. So look at, so, I mean, we have retention when they're not hanging out at the frequency for a long time, right? Let me see here. So Frank at 50% has retention with only hitting aim for 2 consecutive days, right?
So for that one, the only reason that I would say no to that is because he has been, since the beginning, hitting those.
He had one, then he went down, right? It's variable.
So, I mean, I would say that he has been hitting around the frequency aim for, the entire, close to the entire.
Well, his data are really variable. But I mean, like, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like his 6th session and his one before that, they were like below the record floor. And so, now Charles, but now look at Charles for 50%. This little bugger for the last 2 weeks was at or way above the frequency. And then look at his retention for 6 weeks, right? So there's inconsistency there. I mean, yeah, I think that it needs to explore, but I don't think that your data suggests hanging out at the aim for longer periods of time is the solution. I think it says we need to investigate this. But also, so then another thing, so then I see Rhett at 100%, and this guy has been accurate for 3.5 weeks, right? So I think my comment about your studies is that we need to talk a little bit more about the role of accuracy. I think you need to do some sort of like an accuracy analysis at some level, because this guy was accurate for 3 weeks, and we see this amazing retention. He was the only one that retained for the 100%. But in that same vein, there's data that are not accurate and that have held retention, right? So, like, what is like? I'm having a hard time trying to be like, yes, across these participants, for the majority of participants, it's this, and I don't see that.
Because you had only one trial, only one observation in each retention phase, that might also have.
Right. And so then, if you have a second timing, then I think that you look at recovery, which is just a different thing in of itself, which again, I think Bethany talked about that in her paper. And I think that needs to be examined as well. But for retention, you want to control for the practice effect, right? So only having one timing. Now, clinically, we'll do 2 because we're like, yes, come on, recover, right? But experimentally, I would say is that more of a practice effect, or is that true retention of a skill? So, I don't know.
So let's go back to the limitations and what I hear you saying. Yeah, we had a hard time, well, I should say that. We had a hard time kind of figuring out where those pieces went. So
Sure.
we talked about them as limitations. And we also had the problem with the same thing you said was, why did they maintain better at 50%, and why all of it needs to be explored, right? But I'm trying to figure out for Bethany what we want to do.
Sure.
If
Being
anything.
logistical.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't think that she necessarily needs to change her paper, but I think like well, I mean, the way that she talks about it more, I think they should be, I don't think that those things make me question her data. You know, like I've done and been on theses where it's like, okay, that's a limitation that's influencing your data that make them less valid or reliable. So totally limitation. People should control for that in the future. But I think some of these things are more about, are just saying like, wow, well, looking because of our data makes us think about these things. And these things make me think that like somebody else down the road should go and examine these. Or if Bethany were to go on and get her PhD, this could be like, you know, an extension and elaboration of her thesis of like, okay, so now the second part of this study is going to be looking at accuracy and the amount of time spent at the frequency aim. So
Did you say in your future consideration?
Yeah, exactly.
But I would also say that the fact that she's doing Dolch words and not any other skill, and the fact that she's using only for preschool kids, that makes the information less generalized.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
That's a limitation. And the other two we said were the Scarlet left the school
Yep.
and girls began engaging.
Totally. Yes, I would agree with those.
Would you agree with that, Kwansoon, or no? Have we gone off somewhere?
I'm sorry.
That's fine, whatever you guys decide.
Okay.
So we're
We're just taking out only 4 sight words, accuracy, and small number. We're keeping them in.
next,
Right,
which is the future direction.
right, future direction.
Future research.
Yeah.
Okay. So like we've been discussing, future research should use different participants and different skills. We should increase the number of different responses. So rather than having 4 sight words in the set, we could have multiple sight words so that they can have multiple opportunities to respond to different words. We can incorporate accuracy into the mastery criterion and spend more days at the frequency aim. And then we could look at the acquisition of the skill after retention. So how quickly do they return to the fluency criterion?
And so you mean reacquisition
Yeah.
rather than acquisition, yeah.
All right. So in conclusion, the study showed that lower frequencies can produce retention 2 weeks after teaching. However, there is a decay in retention after 6. There was a decay in retention after 6 weeks, especially for the 100% fluency, which was unexpected. We had a decay in retention for 2 of the 3 participants. So clinically, it's great to move on to see, you know, why that we saw the decay in retention and how we can fix that. And in the clinic, what can we do to help these kids learn these words? Any more questions?
I want to know what your feeling is about like the big picture implications of your thesis. Like, so can you dive in a little bit more deeper, with respect to like, how does this thesis impact maybe possible, I mean, you know, granted it's just a small thesis and, you know, not super generalizable, but what are some like just bigger, like, okay, so if we continue down this line of research, what are some bigger implications?
So, I mean, I think that these are great. It's a great start for, you know, future research to see what produces great retention. You know, these data show that you can see there is retention at lower frequencies, but it's variable across participants. So what causes that? You know, we don't know based on these data what exactly causes that. But we have an idea that it could be staying at the frequency for a longer amount of time. It could be the accuracy. And these are great clinical questions because every day we make the decision, you know, 2 times at that frequency aim for 2 different days, and we move you on to the next phase, you know, the next set of materials or, the next program. But what if they're not retaining that information and we're moving them on too quickly? Then we could be creating the same problem that we're trying to fix,
Right.
That's a great, I think that it's going to help clinicians make a better decision about the data.
Good. And you started off your paper having this big picture, the state of American education and evidence-based practices. And I would love to see you just conclude with hitting that back again. So it's like, why is it important that we research retention and how this is a starting point? And like you mentioned the future directions specifically, like, hey, I can list off six other studies that you can create from this thesis. But I think bring it back to the global picture of like, why is this important? Why should somebody continue this research? And the implications that it may have on education or even ABA practice. Because like, as you mentioned, and as you know from doing your reference search, is that there's not a lot of people who are interested in studying retention, why they should be and why it's important, and how do these data support that search. So I think like bringing it back in kind of like as this full circle, that's kind of my preference, but I think hitting back on what you started with about those more global outcomes. And again, you've already humbled yourself with saying like why this isn't like the most groundbreaking research. There's 4 kids and the same, they're just reading sight words. But I think that you make a claim for people to continue this research. Like, why is it important? Why should they do that research that you just specified?
Yeah, I think that's a great, I think that's a great thing.
And possibly not needed for your document, but when you present this at the PT conference, I want us to sit down and really hash through the accuracy data. I'm just making it my mission to find some sort of trend here, and I'm like, it's all like, well, across the board, it's really hard to find a trend here. So I want to see, did the decay in the 100%, they all kind of decayed to what level?
To the 30 correct words per minute.
So they all decayed to that 50%, except for that one dude.
Right.
Now, Carl Binder talks about retention as not so much maintaining the specific frequency aim, but maintaining levels above baseline and maintaining accuracy. Now that's again clinically because we train things to 100% and a fluency aim and a speed requirement. So what are the implications of like, do we see a decay between 100 and 50%? What does that mean? Like, how would that affect a kid? Like, does that create disfluency because all of these component behaviors are 50% of the aim? Or is that enough for them to build component skills? So I think that, and I know that we've talked about that when looking at your data, but I don't know if you included that in your document. I don't remember reading that. But mentioning like, okay, so they decayed this level, and what does that mean? I don't know, but somebody should go and figure that out, right? So I think a lot
of those questions with these data, just because this was one of the first.
Exactly, like and I love that. I'm not saying like anything bad about it. I love these data because I think it really challenges our position on retention and this notion that a lot of novice PTers or people who just hear about PT just think that once you build to this particular speed, the heavens open up and everything's magical and perfect. And, And, you know, that's not necessarily the case. And we look at fluency as an individual and like how you need to do checks for retention and application endurance to ensure that that particular fluency speed is actually fluency and not just really fast.
Right.
So, so I think that, I don't know, I mean, like, no, I love these data, and I love that it created about, like I said, 6 different studies that can come from this. But yeah, I would like to have a little bit more detailed discussion about the 100%, because that is just something, which is probably why nobody has researched it that deeply, is that it's assumed, you know, when you are at 100% of that fluency aim, then yeah, you see that retention. Great, awesome, especially for typical learners. I think people are more concerned about retention with the atypical learner with some sort of developmental disability, but that, you know, I don't know. I feel that it's taken for granted for the typical learners in which, you know, you used. So I think that this dives in, I think that you should dive into like a discussion about those 100% data. And well, now that you can, because you have that third data point.
Yay!
But, and also I want to see Charles, when does Charles get his 6th week?
He was supposed to have it today.
Yesterday.
Wednesday. Yesterday was, but he's gone this week, so I have to get it on.
Of course. Is he
Right?
not sensitive to your thesis defense schedule?
I'm just saying.
So I think, yeah, so I think, you know, once you get his data point, but, you know, like a little more in-depth discussion about those 100% data, I think would be warranted.
Well, I would say that she might never get that last data point for Charles, because whether or not he returns or whatever, and that
It's
be able to complete her thesis.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, no, not for like graduation. I'm just saying like for completion of like life, you know, like this study, you know. But yeah, no, you don't have to do this for like. I'm not saying that this is contingent upon your defense. These are just recommendations for me that, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, no. Not where I was going with that. Sorry.
Any more questions?
No, I think is it time for us to discuss that?
Is it time for you to decide my fate?
The only
Great job presenting.
yeah.
You had a really nice presentation. Your graphs look beautiful. Your figures and tables, and it's very clear and concise. So nice work on that.
Thank you.
Everything carefully. I read a few pages first and then made a few minor edits, grammatical errors.
Mm-hmm.
Also suggest that you follow AP body lines in some areas. So I made it.
Yeah.
So anyway, tried to make some edits of them.
Okay, perfect.
But it's minor. I mean.
Yeah, I found a couple of APA guys too that I'll send you your way.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, I'll stop recording. Or do you want me to continue recording, or should I stop?
No, you should stop.
Okay.